Welcome to the Andrew Holland Podcast, where we explore the stories of successful people, get insight and advice from individuals who have accomplished amazing things, and dive deep into understanding ourselves as human beings. Now, here's your host, Andrew Holland.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Andrew Holland Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. In studio with me, I have Traci Beagley, the founder and CEO of Sunland Home Care and Sunland Medical. But Traci, you have a whole history of entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Andrew Holland Podcast.
Thank you.
So you've started a window company. You've grown that. You've sold that. You have a whole history of entrepreneurship in your family.
Yes.
With your great-grandfather, your grandfather, your father, which is a common trait amongst a lot of my guests and entrepreneurs. So I want to get into all the different experiences you've had as an entrepreneur. Okay. But you're a fourth-generation Arizonan. So take us back. Take us back what you remember as a child, where you were born and raised, and how you realized, or when you first realized, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur and I've got that entrepreneurial bug.
I don't know if I ever really realized that. Growing up, I was just the oldest child that took charge. And I think that is definitely a sign of an entrepreneur.
Yes, it is.
I would take charge in all of the things. I was student body president in high school. And so...
how many siblings?
I'm the oldest of 5.
Oh, okay. So you had a bit same here, 5. So yes, you know what it's like to corral the horde.
They love it, don't they?
I'm the 4th, but my oldest sister, she over corralled.
Well, I'm an oldest child and I'm a redhead. So, double whammy.
You've got the firepower.
So leadership was just something that always came natural to me. And, growing up, we were taught and expected to give back to the community. And that just has always been in my blood and something that has come naturally to me. And I love to do it.
And let's jump into Sunland Home Care first.
Sure.
And your great-grandfather and your grandfather built the first 55 plus active community in the whole state of Arizona.
There was one in the Western Arizona, a very small one,
okay.
But yes, here in the Valley, yes.
And now they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
They're so popular. So do you remember your great-great-grandfather, your grandfather? What do you remember about them?
I never got to meet my great-grandfather.
Okay.
But oddly enough, I guess, I was born on his birthday. And his name was Joseph Farnsworth, and I was named Traci Joe in honor of him.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I never got to meet him, but I have lots of stories about him. And then my grandpa I knew very well. We called him Papa.
So you got to see him running these communities or building these communities. You have a construction background.
Yes.
Talk to us about what it meant or how you ultimately ended up getting into empowering seniors and their families to choose good in-home care, which is exactly what Sunland does.
Yeah.
And did that come from your childhood? Did you stumble into that? Because you were in construction in the window business, which I want to hear how you got into that. Give us some insight how your entrepreneurial path progressed.
Okay, so with Sunland Home Care or start back at the window treatments?
Well, because you're working with seniors and that was such a big part growing up, is that why you got into to the medical side of things and working with seniors? And where did that detour of growing a window company start?
Yeah, so after my great-grandpa passed away, my grandpa and my dad finished building these 55 plus communities, right? And there were many talks of having an in-home care company. My dad also owns an assisted living and a memory care out in East Mesa. And so having or assisting seniors to age at home was a natural business to start. They built 12,000, 13,000 homes in the East Valley. So why not help people age at home? Because that's where people want to be is at home. Yeah.
And so people would basically be in their 55 plus, and those are active communities.
Yeah.
And if for some reason did they stay in those communities and that's why they wanted to start a in-home care company, but they didn't actually do that. You ultimately ended up doing that in 2016, right?
I did it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the one that actually did it. So they had talked about it for several years and nothing ever came to fruition. And so I was at a point in my life in 2016 where I was in between businesses, and everything kind of fell together. And I was like, I'll do it. I didn't know anything about it. We did hire a consulting company for the first year, but I had no idea what I was getting into.
Like so many of us, when we get into something, even when you know what you're getting into, but when you don't, I've got a similar experience in the waste services industry.
Yeah. I remember, so in home care, we run shifts 24/7, and it's no 8 to 5. So I'll never forget that first weekend when somebody called on the weekend because of somebody working. And I was like, wait, I don't have a weekend. Like, people are I just remember that was a huge shock, thinking, oh, I never considered this.
And did you have a team at that point, or were you on call essentially 24/7 because you didn't have a team you could rely on just getting started?
There was one other person.
Okay.
Essentially, yes, it was me.
The accent window treatments.
Mhm.
We talked briefly about that as we were preparing for the podcast. Take us back. Why did you? I love your attitude, Traci, of I don't know, but I can do it, and then you just do it. That's what you do with the window company. That's what you did with Sunland. I think that's very, very inspiring and motivating. I think that can also lead to some headaches that and I'm that same way, so I could say this where I'm just like, let's do it, and I should have been like, well, maybe let's not do it.
Yeah.
Actually. So, but tell us about the window company.
So my dad was building the 4th community, Sunland Springs, and he called me one day and he said, I don't have a company that I like referring window treatments to for my home builders. Do you want to start a business? And I was like, okay. So
You had never started a business before.
No.
Where were you at that point in your life? Had you just graduated from college? Were you a mom? Where were you there?
I had married 3 children. My youngest was in kindergarten. So
okay.
So sure, I was.
You were a mom. You had 3 children, and your dad says you want to start a business. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Anybody that's afraid, just call Traci.
Is there something wrong with that? Is that abnormal?
Yeah, just a little bit. I think it's fantastic because most people are so terrified and they overanalyze and they analysis paralysis. You're the other side of the spectrum, which I think we need a lot more of.
Well, I do know that can be a strength and a weakness. So I know I have to surround myself with people that pull me back and say, okay, let's really think this through. Because some of that attribute has led me to be successful, and other parts, we definitely had our failures along the way.
Yeah. Who hasn't? And you grew that company, started in 2009.
Yeah.
Grew that company until 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the growth and the progression of that company.
Yeah. So I absolutely loved it. I loved business. Even prior to that, I was doing some bookkeeping for a custom home builder. But this was my first, ownership position. And I loved the learning. I loved meeting people. The numbers is a little more difficult for me because I'm more of a relationship person. So I knew that I needed to bring someone in there to support me in that. I loved everything about it. And I started getting super busy working, too many hours and probably making $2 an hour.
That sounds about like the first few years as an entrepreneur.
But
what were your kids doing? You said your youngest was in kindergarten.
Yeah, they were in
school.
school.
So they were at least in school at this point. Okay.
Yeah. And I could meet with people during the day, and then, at nights, weekends, I could do paperwork, ordering. So it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. I thought it was great. And we got to the point where it was like, okay, we either need to hire people, open up a shop, move there. And at that same time, an offer came to buy the company. And I had been feeling like I needed to take a step back. And I didn't know why, but it was just intuition. And I thought, I think I need to get out of this. And I'll never forget, everything fell into place as far as the deal went. And I went in to sign the paperwork, and I got back into my vehicle after I just completed the sale, and I just sobbed and cried. I was so emotional about selling this company.
Traci, I can't even. Carrie, are you listening to this? So Carrie and I were just talking about this last night, talking about, okay, when do people cry?
Oh.
And one of the time, the first thing that came to my mind was when I sold my first
No
company.
way.
And same thing for her.
No
so to
way.
hear you the next day, but we just had this conversation yesterday, say that, I don't think people realize that first baby, professionally speaking,
Yes.
you give so much of everything to it. And when it's gone, even if financially it's fantastic, there's literally a part of you that is missing. So for you to say you went into your car and sobbed, I just ironic. What you said, you weren't sure why you felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know it was the right decision then?
There were a couple of different things that came into my life at that time that it was just the right decision. I just knew it.
So you trusted your gut.
I trusted my gut.
I think that's one of the things that it took me a long time to realize. You can do all this analysis and you can get all the data and you can get all the information. But at the end of the day, once you've honed your gut, and you're a mom at this point, you've honed your gut at this point. It's not like you're like I was when I first started, an idiot 22 or 23-year-old, and you have no clue about life, let alone running a business and managing employees. Once you've honed your gut, you've got to trust it.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, that was in June of 2014, I believe. It was the summer. Just a few months later, my sister had a child that passed away from SIDS. And I knew that's why I needed to step back and be able to support her for a little bit and her family during this time.
Yeah. And so you had those 2 years to do that, from 2014 to 2016.
Yeah, it's about 18 months.
And it wasn't that you didn't like the window company or anything like that.
No.
You loved it.
Yeah.
And then that itch came again.
Yeah. So with the window treatments company, again, towards the end, I was like, I started waking up thinking, I don't care if people pick blinds or shutters. Like, I don't care if they pick draperies or cellular shades. Like, this does not matter to me anymore. And I started realizing I loved meeting people and I loved the relationship side of this. I could care less what people put on their windows. And so it was between that and some other things, and the offer to come in. And I was like, this does not fulfill me anymore.
You realized what your real why was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was the human side, not, it didn't matter what you were selling. You didn't really care about that.
Yeah.
How did you end up, obviously you were there for your sister.
Yes.
Which I had an aunt who had, I will never, ever forget the sobbing that I heard from her. I don't remember if it was in the hospital or at the funeral. When her fourth child, Sammy, died from SIDS. Just, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And so it's incredible that this worked out where you were able to be there with your sister. What's her name?
Yeah, Brittany.
And was this her first, second?
No, it was her sixth.
Yeah. Okay.
So traumatic.
Yeah.
One of the most traumatic things I've been through. And
I mean, anybody that's been a parent knows, if you can't even fathom losing a child, and then whether it's you or someone it's makes all the professional meaningless.
Oh, absolutely.
Just completely meaningless.
Yeah.
So you go through that traumatic time period personally.
Yes.
You're there for your sister. 2016 comes around. What makes you want to start another business?
Well, once I had sold the business and come to grips with my new life, I thought, there's all these projects that I want to get done, and there's these things I wanted to tackle, and I'm going to have all this free time. And a year and a half later, all the same projects were there. I hadn't tackled one thing. And I was like, forget this. I'm done. I'm not doing it. If I haven't done it in the last 18 months, it's not happening. I'm out of here.
Yep. But that why is the answer to that? Let's start a business.
Well, and it was also interesting because my days were a little more unstructured, and I just felt like I didn't have any I like structure, and I was just kind of going through life, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel that meaning. I love to work. I just love to work.
That is something that if you don't have that, number one, you're not an entrepreneur. And number two, if you are an entrepreneur, I hear that from basically every single one. You just love that same feeling.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something you actually love, quite frankly, even if you don't, I mean, I've been doing stuff throughout my past where, okay, you do something and you don't necessarily love it, but you love the fulfillment, you love the hunt, you love whatever that game is that we're born with. Yes. And now, if you can match that marry that with something you love and you've got your why right, I mean, watch out. And that's why they say, do what you love and you won't work a day in your life. I have my beef with that comment, but what made you decide then you wanted structure,
Yeah.
but to get into in-home care?
Yeah. So again, the family had talked about this business for several years, and I just wasn't working and I was ready. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. So my intention was to get everything, the business license and the insurance and all of that ready to go. And then we thought we would turn it over to somebody and let him run it. But as I got more into this, I'm like, wait a second, I really like this. But granted, I didn't have any overnight calls or weekends calls yet, so this was good.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I loved being able to help people in their homes and in these communities, and it just felt good.
Why hadn't your family done it before? If you guys had talked about it so much, obviously you were very active in the senior community with all of the things that your great-grandfather and your grandfather, your dad did. It just never got checked off on the list, or were there other inhibitions that were stopping the family collectively from doing it and you just took the plunge?
There was never really like one person to spearhead it.
Okay.
And I don't know, we've done a couple of side hustles, and in our experience, if you don't have someone waking up, breathing, thinking about this, that is their main focus, those side hustles really don't come to fruition in our experience.
Yeah.
You've got to have that person waking up and this is what they do.
That's every single entrepreneur's experience. And if you think it's not, you're lying to yourself. Because you just think about when your attention is divided, even two ways.
Yeah.
You can't put 100% to the one thing. So your competitor, if they're putting 100% to it, you're not going to stand a chance.
Right.
These side hustles you speak of, were they side hustles you did that you realized were distractions for the main company you were trying to do? Or give us some insight there.
My husband has had, some things that he's done on the side. And also with the home care company, it took years and years for it to ever come to fruition because nobody was taking that up. Also, I started an ancillary business to the home care. And because I was dividing my time and a lot of other reasons, just never came to the vision that I had for it. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Was that ancillary business Sunland Medical?
Yeah.
Are you still running that?
I'm not.
Okay. So talk to us about where Sunland Home Care or Sunland Home is today.
Yeah. So we've been in business 8 years this summer, and we've employed throughout the 8 years, over 1,100 people. We've ranged anywhere from 40 to 100 clients at one time. The home care business is very fluid, with people getting on services and off services quite a bit.
Because they pass away.
Because and that, or they move into an assisted living. They move home back to the Midwest. It's very fluid.
Yeah.
So, some weeks I'm like, yes, we got 3 new clients. Oh, wait, 4 people passed away.
Yeah. That's a net negative of 1 for those of you listening. Do you like that volatility?
Do I like it? I don't think I know anything else. It just is what it is. I just constantly know that I have to stay ahead of that curve. And sometimes you win and sometimes you don't.
Many people, until they've experienced it, don't understand the extreme, the high highs, and the low lows of entrepreneurship. And all of us as humans have a certain barometer where we're meant to endure certain things. I think we can endure far more than we realize until we push ourselves to the limits. But you have to find a coping mechanism to deal with such volatility, because I don't believe we're inherently made to have a monstrous day one day and then be so far in the earth the next day because of whatever reason, whether personally or professionally. How have you found personally to cope with that volatility? And what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are going through something similar and they're not sure how to handle that?
Oh my gosh. There's nothing more than I love being in a room with entrepreneurs. You speak a language that nobody else can speak. You can understand things without saying anything. Like you said, I got in my car and cried. Nobody understands that. One of my saving graces has been I joined a mastermind group of home care companies.
Okay.
I absolutely love that. We would travel twice a year to meet together and problem solve and just understand best practices. That has been one of the best things. I have people all over the US I can call and just say, "What are you doing for this? How are you handling this?" And that was extremely helpful during the pandemic.
So you joined an industry association that was across the country that you could basically brainstorm,
Mhm.
and people knew exactly what you were going through.
Yeah.
That's such a good idea. It took us a long time in the waste services industry to discover that. And now in the construction industry, there's so many, they've all done it before. Why? Don't be afraid to ask. Ask
Yeah.
for help. So many, whether personally or professionally, set aside entrepreneurs. I don't know why it is. In today's day and age, we're afraid to ask for help. I've never asked for help and had someone say no.
That's true.
But most people just, for whatever reason, don't ask for help. And so joining this industry association, you can ask all of these people for help, and you guys are in it together, even though, you're not competitors, you're in different parts of the country. So that's great advice. If you're feeling that way and you don't know how to deal with it, look for industry associations where you can leverage knowledge and power. And that seems common sense, but quite frankly, there's nothing in entrepreneurship that's common sense. Because when you're going through the fray and experiencing all of your desk is full, one emergency to another emergency to another emergency, it's not that you don't have common sense. It's sometimes you don't even have time to think about, take a step back, think, oh, wait, this is a logical thing I should take.
Yeah.
What else have you found has been particularly helpful?
Well, sometimes I found that industry specific mastermind group helpful, but sometimes I have joined other mastermind groups that have not been industry specific. And that's filled my bucket because you're bringing together a lot of different people from outside your industries that have a fresh take on your problems and, things you're trying to solve.
One of the things, like a roundtable, I think you're
Sure.
you're on a woman's roundtable, CEO woman's roundtable,
Yeah.
and I know you get a tremendous amount of value from
love
that.
it.
And it's how I met you through Carrie Masters, who's on the
Yes.
same roundtable. That's where you guys met. One of the things that oftentimes people forget, and again, this seems logical, is just because you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't mean personal life stops. And all the issues that come with being a mom or living in this world. In 2018, you were diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer.
Yeah.
2 years into the business.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. I was working like crazy those 2 years, didn't stop. And I firmly believe because I didn't take care of my body that this is one of the results of that. And my therapist explained, Traci, if you don't put gas in the car, you're eventually going to run out.
Yeah.
And so that was a shocker. I was always taught to believe that if you work hard enough, you'll achieve it and you'll be successful. And I could control it because I could work hard enough. I learned a lot about not being in control. And that is a horrible lesson to learn.
But an important one. That has probably, how have you changed because of that?
Oh my gosh, so many ways. I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. There's just no room for that in my life. And when something confronts me, it's like, well, is this going to matter next week or in 5 years? And I honestly, when I'm looking at making decisions or should I attend this or miss this, am I going to care about this in 5 years or not? And if that's how I gauge a lot of my decisions.
That's a great question. It's challenging that it took stage 2 breast cancer to put you in that position.
Yeah,
you're healthy.
It's horrible.
You're healthy.
Yes.
You've gotten through it. You've got a clean bill of health.
Yes.
For people that don't have something like that where they're forced into it, how do they figure out the things that you figured out by going through that? What can they actively do to learn that prioritization? Because I think that is one of the biggest things between the most successful entrepreneurs and those who maybe don't make it, is they understand the importance of priorities and decision making and how to put things in a larger, longer term perspective.
Honestly, for me, I think it comes down to life beating you up. It comes down to the hard things that happen to you in life, and how are you going to handle or react to those situations? And for me, I'm going through a lot of hard things. We all are. But my perspective is, okay, this really sucks and I hate it. And please get this over as fast as possible. But at the same time, what am I supposed to learn from this? Like, I want to learn from this. If I'm going to go through something hard like cancer, what am I going to learn from it? And how can I use this to help other people? And so, yeah, I've been through a lot of really tough things. You know, my nephew passing away from SIDS.
Mm-hmm.
What can I learn from this? And how can I use it to help other people? And then I don't feel like the really hard things that I'm going through, they're still awful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not in vain. Like,
Yeah.
I'm able to help somebody connect with somebody going through that and maybe, you know, help them through it.
I think that's an incredible mindset. And it's obviously taken you going through some of those to arrive at this mindset.
Sure.
You know, we're all a product of our experiences. One of the things that I discovered probably year 5 or 6 in the business is, and again, I don't know where I'm 27, 28. So you women know that we men don't even, you know, it takes us a little bit longer to figure things out. I don't know if we ever do, but what I will say is, and this is common with entrepreneurs, and so I'm curious on your perspective with this. Part of the way you deal with that volatility
Mhm.
is you try to take emotion out of everything.
Mm.
And I found myself not enjoying the high highs and not letting the low lows impact me. And it was crossing from professional to personal.
Mm.
So something amazing would happen. And I don't have a specific, maybe a really good friend get married and you're like, oh, that's great. But you didn't feel it because you had hardened yourself emotionally to deal with what entrepreneurship brings. And I distinctly remember when my mom said something, and I don't remember what it was, but it made me take a step back and think, I'm not human anymore. I don't have, this isn't normal. And I need to find my way back to still having a hard shell when you need it.
Right.
You're getting sued, all these other different things, dealing with employees, but being able to live, being able to enjoy the incredible things on the personal side and on the professional side, whether it's good things or bad things, because you have to feel to mature and to live. If you can't, or if you don't, what's the point of doing any of this?
Yeah.
And, you know, sharing it with people and family. So I had to actively work to get back there. What has your experience been with that hardening, unhardening, finding that balance between being human, but still having a thick enough shell to withstand all the barrage of bullets that come with being an entrepreneur?
The barrage of bullets. That is a very great analogy there. I'm very good at putting up the wall. And I found after going through cancer, like, that doesn't serve me anymore, is to personify, you know, that I've got it all together and things are going well. And I don't really care about that anymore. It's like, life is messy. I am who I am. You know, it doesn't work for me anymore. So it's interesting you bring this up because I have been feeling a little less emotion lately. And I'm like, am I burned out? You know, I've kind of been in this self-reflective state. Am I burned out? Do I need to take some time off? Like, where am I still enjoying this? I've really been trying to dig deep. I made an appointment with my therapist, like something I'm just not feeling, right? And it's interesting. Mel Robbins has a podcast right now talking about a study that's been going on for 80 years on how to find joy and happiness. So this podcast kind of came up at the same time I'm reflecting on all of this. I think for me, I love connecting with people. And so I find when I am getting not feeling or less emotion, it's because I'm just checking things off of the list. And I need to slow down and I need to reconnect with not only myself, but with other people.
Yeah.
And maybe I haven't had a deep conversation with somebody. Maybe I haven't gone out with my husband in a while. Whatever that is, I've noticed lately, it's just been a checklist.
I think everybody's experiencing that or experiences that at some point. Number one, thank you for being so honest and authentic. What you just described is authenticity. And it just boggles my mind. And I have not figured this out. I have this conversation with many entrepreneurs. Authenticity is the definition of being human.
Sure.
Why do so many business owners try to put up a facade that's not there? I don't get it.
I was that person. I was that person at one time. Because it's interesting when you're a business owner, people they expect certain things. Like they absolutely think that you're rolling in the dough. They think that you've got, you're working 8 to 5 and you're, hiking or on the golf course, a couple times a week. There's something, and it was different. It's just interesting as a business owner. I feel like you just get treated a certain way. You're driving a certain car. You're living in a certain house. It's just different. And I felt that. And I have found when I am more authentic and more vulnerable with people, it either attracts people or it repels people. And I believe it attracts the people that I need in my life and that I want to be connected to. And it repels people that, that's fine. When it's fine. There's someone for everybody. Right.
Yeah.
And so I love having deep conversations with people and, enjoy things like this. And it's important and it makes me feel human again.
I think everyone needs to re-listen to what you just said, Traci, because that's different for everybody. You're an extrovert. I think, well, let me rephrase that. You can be an extrovert. I don't know how hard you have to work to be an extrovert, because there are introverts.
I'm an introverted extrovert.
Yes.
I can turn it on when I need to.
Yes.
But it takes a lot to get there.
So I'm learning that because I'm an extrovert. And when I'm feeling like empty, I need other people. I need humans.
Yeah.
And all of the introverts in my life, even if they are in a position where they have to play an extrovert, and I have a whole podcast that talks about how much energy that takes. So if you are an introvert playing an extrovert role, try to find it. But if you're fulfilled, that's one thing. But try to find a role that matches introvert with your role, because it takes double to triple the amount of energy to be an extrovert if you in an extroverted role.
Oh, sure.
If you're an introvert, sometimes you don't have a choice, but if you're an extrovert and you're stuck in an introverted role, you're going to die. You're absolutely going to die.
That's not good.
So figure out what that is for you. Everybody listening, I think about, okay, if you're not feeling human, like we just talked about, I love that you took a step back and you identified it, because a lot of people just try to ignore it. They just try to pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
And then it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse.
Well, it's interesting having come on being on this side of the cancer journey is, I've been given a second chance at life. And so when I get to feeling this way, I'm like, wait a second, I have not gone through all that I've gone through to be, just living day in and day out, like I want meaning and purpose in my life. And I didn't fight through that to just exist.
Yeah. That's a great perspective that not a lot of us have. And so to hear that, it kind of gives me a wake up call. Okay. It shouldn't take something for you, Andrew, that to feel every day.
Yeah.
And so to hear it from you, okay, I need to step back and say, am I feeling, am I not? And I think we all need a kind of a mirror check, I guess, every once in a while.
Oh, for sure.
When we talk about authenticity. Mm-hmm. You have 3 kids.
Yeah.
How old are they?
22, 19, and 17.
Okay, so you've been through the teenage years. You know what that involves. What are their boys, girls?
Girl, boy, girl.
Girl, boy, girl. Okay. Talk to us about this. This is a cell phone I'm holding up. In the context of, where do you think we're headed as a society because of this?
Oh my goodness. So many thoughts. It's hard with teenagers. It's an amazing, incredible tool and technology, and it's also causing a lot of problems in our society. And I include myself in that.
The reason I ask this from a professional perspective, you can't not do it.
No.
You can't not be on LinkedIn and social media and all these other things. Karen and I were just talking about this yesterday, and I that part, if you guys follow my LinkedIn or any of my social media, it's not very active because it's not who I am, but you have to do it. But how have you found in your personal and professional life to find balance? And how do you bring that balance to kids? They can go, my nieces and nephews, I don't have any kids of my own yet, but they can go on this and they're 6. They're whatever age they are. So they grew up with it. Imagine what's happening to their brains.
Yeah.
How do you find that balance?
I don't think I have good balance, especially being in senior healthcare where we work 24/7. I think that's one of the reasons that I identified that I have maybe not been feeling as much is because I have to answer my phone all the time. Weekends, people are calling for our services all the time. I'm on call literally 24/7. Yeah, we have other people, but I'm the business owner.
Yeah.
I'm on call 24/7.
Yeah.
And so what I did, I deleted all my social media. I deleted all the apps.
Good for you.
So, and I'll do that for a couple of weeks. I'm like, oh, well, I guess, I won't post something for work for a while, but I'm like, I don't care. This is for me. And, I just needed that break. I just needed it.
I actually think the mental health toll that it's taking on business owners, we'll stick to the business owners because teenagers and just on the personal side is a whole nother level. I actually think that is causing us to be less productive and less efficient and less customer service oriented than the power that it gives us, because it is very hard to find that balance. If we could figure out that perfect balance and achieve that perfect efficiency, okay. But I'm not sure anybody that has figured out, which is why I like to ask, because I want to learn, okay, if you figured it out, please tell me what the answer is.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to kind of highlight, it's a little bit related to technology, but it's more related to the human side and teams. These are a big part of teams. Your company has been awarded Great Place to Work for so many years I can't even count. What do you think you're doing differently?
When I started this company, I was sitting at my desk and there was a quote that came across my desk that said, basically, if you put your employees first, then your company will be successful. And I'll never forget that moment. Something resonated within me. And it was a Richard Branson quote. Something resonated very deep within me that day. And I thought, this is what I need to do. Because first of all, again, post-cancer, I want people to be happy. I want them to feel fulfilled and enjoy. And we spend so much time working that I wanted to be part of that fulfillment and that joy that we bring people's life. And I firmly, firmly believe that when people are living their why and they are getting up and going to work and doing what they have been called to do, then they will be happy, and then your customers will be happier.
For you, what did putting your employees first mean, and what specific steps did you take to fulfill that mission?
Yeah. So in our industry, our caregivers have historically not been treated very well. Caregivers the majority of them are women. They're raising their kids. Their grandma's raising their grandkids. They're hourly wage earners. And I identified with that. And I thought, I'm not only here to help seniors, but the majority of people that work for me are women, and I want to assist them. I know what it's like to be a working mom and try to juggle this. And I want to help them however I can.
And so what did that mean? What did you do within Sunland to make that possible? Because I struggle with this, because especially in this day and age where the work ethic is changing, loyalty is changing. For all my listeners, you probably think I beat on the younger generations way too much. And there's a lot of good things that come with that.
So many good things.
But there are a lot of things that I'm identifying in, quite frankly, all generations. It's kind of percolating throughout all of society, where that sense of responsibility to each other, doing unto others as you would like done unto yourself, has just disappeared. And I don't think you can have a healthy culture within an organization until you have some way found a way to instill that within the entire team.
Yeah. So some of the things that we do is, we've had barbecues where at a park where I've brought in our cook trailer and we've served that. We have an annual party every June, a work anniversary party. They can bring their families and have an opportunity to do something they may not be able to do on their own. We help with insurance benefits and Medicare, and we've helped pay rent. We've helped people with their cars and buying tires. We have done so many things to help let people know that this just isn't a job. This is a mission. And when we're able to get to know people outside of work and their personal life, there becomes that connection and that, we have people come back to work for us all the time because of how they were treated when they worked for Sunland.
I think that's a huge testament to Sunland. I think a lot of organizations can do better at finding how to create that family away from family.
Yeah.
How has COVID changed that concept of culture for you? Speak specifically for your company, and then if you have thoughts broadly speaking across just business and how businesses can instill that culture with this new world we live in.
COVID changed so much in our business. It was one of the most difficult times of my life. And we also were able to pivot and have some good things come out of that, which I think a lot of people and companies were able to do. But it totally knocked us off our path for a little bit because all I could do was try to stay up with new guidelines that were coming out every 15 minutes, and then trying to retrain people and educate our clients. And it was impossible. It was very hard. And so we absolutely, some things fell to the wayside. And it was only probably in the last 6 months or so where I was like, oh my gosh, we used to do this. We need to get doing that again. And so I'm finding that I love the culture piece of the business. And I noticed that I had kind of put that on the back burner a little bit. And I'm like, no. Like, my number one job is the financial health of the company and the culture of the company. And I was lacking. And I'm like, if I'm not spearheading the culture of the company, who is? And
comes from the top.
Yeah. And so I realized, oh, wait, I need to set aside some time each week to make sure that our culture, what are we doing? How are we honoring people? How are we awarding people? One of my favorite things to do is when we onboard new caregivers, I show up on that Thursday during orientation. I meet everybody. I shake their hands. I welcome them to the team. I love it. I want them to know that I'm here. I'm involved. Our door's open, and you're on our team now.
Yeah, I think just so many incredible things that you said there. And I think going back to what you said earlier, the owner making an appearance and treating you like a human, not just looking there, hey, there I am, but actually looking at someone joining your company as another human.
Yeah.
And that goes so incredibly far. And I think if there's one thing that you're an owner and you aren't thinking about culture, one thing you can do today is something that simple. You have to actually mean it and you have to be authentic. I'm assuming that's the case. If that's not the case, well, we have a lot of other things to talk about. But for your clients, for seniors, you're in an industry where you deal with death a lot and you deal with families that are grieving. And for those of us who are, whatever industry, just building a house or just, less emotion is involved. How has that impacted how you do business and how you think about the customer experience?
That's so interesting. And I recently was talking to a friend of mine, Danny Brown. He's a real estate agent, about customer experience because he's really good at it. And so, you know, I have had a lot of people that I have worked with for years and years and years, and it's such a privilege to care for them in their home, and I become friends with them, you know? And so most recently, he passed away. We took care of his wife, took care of him for 7 years. And I got the phone call and I was in my family room and I just cried. I just was like, you know, cancel everything the rest of the day. Like, I'm just going to feel this today.
Good for you.
And it wasn't easy, but
Mhm.
it was just something that I needed. And we do bring people into our company to train on grief and how do you handle grief? How do you work through grief? Because our caregivers go through that, and us in the office, we go through that so much. It's hard. And you can lose the human element really quickly because you
Yes.
have to build that wall
Yes.
because you have people passing away so much. Thankfully, there's hospice companies offer 13 months of bereavement support. So if someone's on hospice, families and our caregivers can have that support, which
Yeah.
is really, really awesome. There was another question.
Well, no, I think you hit it on the head because I just think about, if you don't win a job or we have very strong relationships in the construction industry, but our clients typically aren't passing away. And
Yeah.
in yours, you grow that bond and it's already hard enough not to build a wall. And now your clients are your, as you said, best friends, and now they're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, so to hear that you obviously are going through those experiences, I think one of the things you said, you gave yourself time to grieve. And I love that. I think that's not necessarily people are like, well, how is that related to entrepreneurship? It doesn't have to be the extreme of your client passing away. I mean, there's so many points in entrepreneurship where you just want to go into the corner and cry.
Yes.
I don't care who you are. And if you hold it all in, you will eventually blow up. So what I think is so important that you said is take that time that you need.
Yeah. And the customer experience. It was interesting because when I was talking to Danny Brown about the customer experience, someone passes away, and depending on the relationship, we always send a card. We have a sympathy gift that we mail out to the caregivers to thank them for taking care of them. And sometimes we'll send flowers. It just kind of depends on the nature of the relationship. But I realized that many times it ends there. And I thought, we're doing a really bad job. I don't want people to think that we've cared for them and then great, it's over. And so I am developing something for after someone passes away. What does that look like at 6 months and 1 year?
That's
and a
fantastic.
touch point or something like that. So I've been working on that.
And the thing is not only that an incredible thing to do, perhaps the right thing to do, not that it's right or wrong there, but I guarantee you the referrals and everything you will get from that, bringing the business side into it, is going to be incredible. So I'm interested to hear how that goes. You don't have a lot of fear. And that's a really great thing. And you, even back when you started the window company, let's do it. And of course, because of everything you've been through in life, you know how to prioritize. And I think you're incredibly blessed that you are where you are today in spite of everything that you had to go through to get there. And everybody has that story, right? And it's different levels and different scales.
Sure.
But as it relates to someone who is an entrepreneur, but they feel trapped in the corporate world and they haven't bet on themselves and they're terrified. Maybe they have a family, maybe they're young. Oh, and if you're young, you can fail so many times. Bet on yourself. But let's focus on the people who maybe have a load of responsibilities and they've been in the corporate world for 15 or 20 years, but they are born to be an entrepreneur. They just haven't let themselves discover it. What advice would you give to them to get past that fear and take that leap?
That is a good question. One of the things that I think I would recommend is, have an exploratory process. Have a little more common sense sometimes than I do. Talk to people, do your research, do your analysis, right? But I decided a long time ago, at the end of the day, I'm going to bet on myself more than anything else. And I know I'm going to get in there. I know I'm going to put in the time. It's going to be blood, sweat, and tears, but I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to do it. And you have to expect to fail. You are going to fail, and that's okay. And it sucks and it hurts. But that's really where you're going to learn your biggest life lessons and learn the most about yourself. I just, again, thought if I worked hard enough, I would never fail. And that is so not true. And so now I'm able to take these moments and figure out how can I use it to either relate with other people, help other people move forward. But, it's not rainbows and butterflies, and you will fail. And do you have the grit? It takes grit. Do you have the grit to show up every single day, whether or not that phone's ringing or not?
That's a great word, grit, and it's also a great book.
Yes.
I want to talk about Sunland. Where's it going next? What is your vision for the company?
World domination.
I love that answer, and it just rolled right off the tongue. Very growth oriented.
I've always wanted to just be the biggest. But post-cancer, I only want to be the biggest if we can continue to have that human element in the company, in our culture, if we can continue to provide excellent care to people. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're the biggest, if you're doing crappy work. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be that person. My name is on this, and I want to make sure that we're providing the best service possible. And if we can do that and scale and keep growing, I'm all in.
Do you think that's possible to get large and keep culture, keep that customer service? Because I've seen it. And even as our company grew in the waste services industry, you have to inherently put in systems and processes mm-hmm. to have a consistent customer experience, to mm-hmm. deal with all the volatility. Yeah. And that the bureaucracy, I'm going to use that word bureaucracy, is the antithesis of culture, flexibility, and exactly what you described you always want to see with your company.
I don't know. I hate red tape. I could never work for a corporation. I would lose my mind. I cannot do it.
But as you get larger,
you have to put systems and processes in place.
And if you don't, but it inherently comes into an organization if you're not fighting against it. It will always as you get larger.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that as you get larger, it doesn't become unnecessary? How have you done that?
How have I done that? I believe that it starts at the top, but who are the people that are hiring, who you're hiring, who is leading your teams? And where are they living their mission, or are they collecting a paycheck? I think it trickles down into every single level of the organization. And customer service, I love customer service. I love the customer experience. That's like fun to me. I have weird sense of fun.
I think it's fantastic, especially for the industry that you're in.
You have, especially in our industry, probably across the board, you have to find those people who are living their mission. What is their why? I recently hired someone that is a lady who is, raising her own family and taking care of her aging parents. She gets it. Mm-hmm. My executive director took care of her grandparents. These are people that get it and that are living it and understand the importance of this. And it's not just a paycheck to them.
I think you've hit on something that is very easy to forget as companies grow, that your company is nothing more than the collection of humans that provide the good or service that you're providing.
Totally.
And if you don't look at those humans, and if you don't make sure that they're fit for the position or thing they're doing, and there's lots of reasons why they might not be fit. They might not care, but their strengths might just not be aligned with the strengths that are required for the particular position that they're in.
And there's no problem with that.
But if you move them around into a different part in the company and you match those strengths with the job responsibilities, they can blossom like a rose in spring.
For sure.
You've been incredibly gracious with your time, and we've covered a whole gamut in a short period of time. Thank you for being as open and honest about cancer and some of the things that are challenging, because the reason I started this podcast was, in year 2 or 3 of the business, I just felt really alone. And that is a common feeling of entrepreneurship.
Oh, 100%.
Even you can be surrounded by tons of people, but you feel alone. And I told myself once I had the opportunity, I would have something like this where entrepreneurs don't have to feel that way. You're not going through it alone. Everybody's going through some version of what you're describing. And by having authentic conversations like we just had, that helps. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share with our audience that you think is particularly important surrounding anything in life?
Oh my goodness. Words of wisdom.
It can be words of wisdom as an entrepreneur, as a mother,
Yeah.
anything. And I think it's particularly pertinent coming from you because when you face death, and everybody that I've met that has faced death, their perspective is so incredibly unique and important. And I don't think that we cherish those perspectives enough. And so that's why I want to open the floor.
Yeah, interesting. I don't mean this in the way it's used a lot right now, but the only way that you can give of yourself and your talents, and as an entrepreneur, you're solving a problem, that you have found, you have to learn how to take care of yourself. And I don't mean like, go spend a week in the spa or, something like that. You have to do the work. You have to be in tune. And because if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot give to anybody else. And as an entrepreneur and as an owner, all day long, as a mom, as a wife, I am supporting people, keeping people lifted up all day long. It's give, give, give. And if I am not feeling settled, if I'm not processing, emotions or whatever it is, if my mental health isn't good, my physical health, I cannot give to others. And so it's just very important for me to make sure I'm in a good place or as good as possible so that when I wake up that next day, I can go out and serve and love and support and give to this world, what I'm here to do.
I think that's excellent advice, and often that concept is overlooked. You can only give as much help and support to other people as you've given yourself. And if it's not there, you're hurting everybody, not just yourself.
Yeah.
Traci, thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Andrew Holland Podcast. Never miss an episode by subscribing to and liking our YouTube channel, the Andrew Holland Podcast, and by following and liking the show on your favorite audio platforms. Be sure to connect with us on X, formerly Twitter, A Holland Podcast. That's A Holland Podcast. So you can interact with Andrew, the team, and our guests throughout the week. Thank you again so much for listening. Have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.